Good evening. Welcome to the Livonia Public Schools Board of Education regular meeting of December 13th, 2021. Mrs. Bonifield, would you please take the roll for us this evening?
Mrs. Acosta?
Here.
Mrs. Bonifield is here. Mr. Centers?
Here.
Mrs. Jarvis?
Here.
Mr. Johnson?
Here.
Mrs. Bradford is out today, and President Burton.
Here. And we have a quorum. Mr. Centers, would you help us with the Pledge of Allegiance this evening?
Gladly. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening. Welcome to our Board of Education meeting. Unfortunately, we have, of course, an enormous tragedy in the education community that's affected Southeast Michigan and specifically Oxford, but certainly all of us in this region. And we would like very much to take a moment of silence in honor of those affected by the Oxford school tragedy. Most folks here in this room know, certainly may not know folks in the Oxford community directly, but even those in Livonia and all of our surrounding communities are significantly impacted. So if and when you have the opportunity, thank an educator, thank a support staff person, thank any of those who are in our education community, and do whatever you can to reach out and support our students who are certainly struggling at this time. This evening's meeting is a regular meeting. Some folks refer to it as a voting meeting. And by that, we mean that this is the meeting that we bring many items that are ready for a vote to our meeting. Our typical meetings cycle starts out with most items coming to us at a study session, and then a committee of the whole at which we do a lot of in-depth discussion on the issues. Once we've asked just about every question that we can possibly think of, we send it to what we call a regular meeting or a voting meeting, as we have tonight. For that reason, you may or may not hear the level of discussion on some of the items that you might expect, including items that we may be voting on that have large dollar values associated with them. Please understand that that's not because we take these things lightly or that we don't ask questions and go into in-depth conversation, but rather we've discussed these things at least a couple of meetings before they come to us this evening. So we've pretty much exhausted all of the questions and answers that we can think of on a given topic. So you will, if you're interested in hearing more in-depth discussion on some of the items that come before us, I encourage you to either attend a committee of the whole meeting or tune into them as they are broadcast live. They're also found on our website, which is livoniapublicschools.org. If you hover over that board tab, you can drop down to board meeting information and find videos of any of our prior meetings. So if you're looking for discussion on certain items, you can find those there also. If you're here with us this evening and you'd like to have a copy of our agenda, they can be found just outside the door that you likely came in, just over to my left. If you are at home and you'd like to follow along with our meeting, the agenda can be found at that same website, livoniapublicschools.org. Again, if you hover over the board tab, the school board tab, you can find board meeting information, and our agendas can be found there also. We will be going through some very exciting things this evening. We are thrilled to pieces to have many folks here to honor three very, very special staff members of Livonia Public Schools. Many of your family members are here. Many of your peers are here in the schools that you're working in. So we are very, very excited to hear a whole lot of wonderful things about some of our very special staff members this evening. We thank so many of you for coming out and honoring our folks, as we are thrilled to do also. We will be taking a brief recess after our district update from our superintendent, which is after item 3C, so that we can take a few minutes to congratulate our honorees of the evening. So we will take about a 5-minute break at that point of our meeting. One characteristic that we take very seriously in Livonia Public Schools is that of respect. It's taught to our children at every level, and it's expected that respect is expected to be shown between our students, between our adults, and between our students and adults. This Board of Education takes that very seriously. You have our word that we will show respect to every member of our community, to every member of our audience who is here with us this evening. We may agree on issues in the room tonight. We may disagree on issues, and that's normal because we're all human. But you do have our word that we will show respect to everybody. In return, we also ask that all of our audience members show respect to anybody who is speaking this evening. Again, we can agree, we can disagree, but we will be respectful with one another. And we find that to be the very best way to teach our children is by example. We're going to go ahead and get into the rest of our meeting at this time. We are on to item 3B, Educators and Support Staff of the Year. May I have a motion, please?
President Burton.
Mrs. Bonifield.
Move that the Board of Education of the Livonia Public Schools School District adopt the attached resolutions for the 2021-2022 Educators and Support Staff of the Year.
Support.
We have a motion by Mrs. Bonifield, supported by Mrs. Jarvis. And Mrs. Jenkins, welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, President Burton, members of the board, Superintendent Elquist. Happy holidays to you all as well. It's a very special night in LPS. Tonight it's my pleasure to present the Livonia Public Schools Educators and Support Staff of the Year for the 2021-2022 school year. For the second year in a row, this program has held extra special meaning, considering the challenging times brought forth by the pandemic and other recent issues that have prompted us to dig our heels in and keep moving forward. We move forward with the resolve not only to educate our students, but also care for them by meeting their needs during these times of uncertainty. I think you'll all join me in saying that all of our educators and all of our staff members are truly amazing people who give everything they have on a daily basis. But in keeping with a nearly 40-year tradition in LPS, I'm honored to recognize 3 individuals tonight who represent that excellence in their work with students, staff, and families in our district. Before we get into the introductions, let me briefly describe the program and how we got to this point this evening. Back in the spring, we called for nominations from our parents, students, and our staff. As usual, the nominations came pouring in. Once we had our nominations, a district committee read every packet and met to discuss and decide who would be recognized this year. And as usual, it was a very grueling process. I would like to take this opportunity to thank our committee members who devoted many, many hours to this selection process. We could not have this program without you. In the end, we named 1 elementary educator of the year, 1 secondary educator of the year, and 1 support staff of the year. These honorees join a long list dating back to the beginning of the original Teachers of the Year program in 1983, and their names will be inscribed on plaques here at Central Office. Without further ado, allow me to introduce you to this year's honorees. And as I call your name, I've got them strategically placed here near me. So as I call your name, please stand. Our elementary educator of the year is Peggy Brissett. Our secondary educator of the year is Amy Monday. And our support staff person of the year is Eric Raymond. Okay, you can be seated for right now. Just relax. I'm going to talk about you a little bit. As I say each year, there's a certain level of celebrity that comes with this distinction. And yes, I serve as their agent throughout the school year. Our honorees each year are recognized on the district's electronic media, in the district's dialogue newsletter, and they are recognized at the Livonia Chamber of Commerce annual Leadership and Awards Ceremony, and also at the Livonia PTSA Council's annual Founders Day event. Each honoree also receives special recognition tributes from our county and state elected officials. Debunking that whole supply chain issue that we're all experiencing, our wonderful county commissioners dropped off some tributes this afternoon, just on very, very short notice, and we thank these county commissioners. I'll show you. I won't read through each tribute, but it's a beautiful tribute signed by County Commissioners David Knezek, Terry Marecki, and Glenn Anderson. And each one is personalized for each of our honorees. We also have state tributes coming shortly, coming soon from our state elected officials, Governor Whitmer, State Senator Dana Polhanke, and State Representative Lori Pohutsky. Those will be delivered as soon as they arrive. I will drop them at their schools. In the meantime, I'm so excited to present a few gifts to each of our honorees, including this beautiful personalized golden apple, which every year I have to take it out because it's so pretty. And it's very heavy, and each one is inscribed with, this one is Elementary Educator of the Year, Peggy Brissett, with the school year listed at the bottom. Okay, now I get to do the fun part that I love. I've been working to assemble some very special gift bags for our honorees. I'd like to present one to each of our honorees here, and I'll tell you a little bit about what's in each bag. There are gift cards to restaurants and retailers, along with Livonia Rec Center passes and golf passes, as well as some LPS swag. So here's one for Mrs. Brissett. Thank you very much. You're welcome. Here you are. There you are. You're welcome. And we would like to thank the following for contributing to these gifts, gift bag donation, or with donations. Las Palapas Restaurant in Livonia, Livonia Parks and Recreation, French Associates, Clark Construction, TMP Architects, and IDS. Please enjoy these gifts. Do not give them away as Christmas presents. Please spend them on yourself and have some fun, okay? Promise? Now I'd love to tell you a little bit about each of our honorees, so sit back and enjoy. This is also the best part. We'll start with Mrs. Peggy Brissett, if you'd join me at the podium. And also, let's see, we've got a special resolution, and if we could have Board Trustee Tammy Bonifield join us. This is yours to keep as well. Yes, thank you.
Hi. Whereas the trustees of the Board of Education are desirous of recognizing and promoting excellence in education in this school district, and whereas Peggy Brissett, a third-grade teacher at Coolidge Elementary School and a 21-year employee of Livonia Public Schools, has distinguished herself as being named Elementary Educator of the Year for 2021-2022 by district-wide committee, and whereas in achieving that recognition, it is evident that she is an exceptional educator, going far beyond the expected range of her duties to meet the needs of students, colleagues, parents, and others. And whereas Peggy has shown a deep dedication to educating her students and supporting her colleagues, even while teaching remotely during last school year and serving as a leader, mentor, and supporter during a challenging school year. Now, be it resolved that the trustees of the Board of Education do hereby commend and congratulate Peggy Brissett for being named Elementary Educator of the Year for 2021-2022, and for the dedication and loyal service she has rendered to Livonia Public Schools, her students, and the community. Congratulations.
Thank you, Tammy. I'm doing this a bit out of order, but you want to put those in here? Okay, so come on over here. Not yet. Go ahead. This is the point where I brag about you for a little bit, okay? So, as stated in the resolution, Peggy Brissett is a 21-year veteran teacher in Livonia Public Schools. She currently teaches 3rd grade at Coolidge Elementary. Mrs. Brissett has served on a number of committees throughout the years, including committees for math, technology, leadership and school improvement, literacy, and climate and culture, and even recess, I heard, right? Recess committee. You've done it all. During the past school year, she stepped outside of her comfort zone when the district established the first ever Livonia virtual option for students. She not only raised her hand to teach 3rd graders virtually for the entire school year last year, she guided and mentored other LV teachers along the way. Teacher Brianna Marshall, who was in her first year of teaching last school year, said Peggy was her rock. She said, quote, "If I needed anything, I knew I could go to Peggy. I would not have made it through my first year if it weren't for Peggy." With her students, she stepped up her game even more by building relationships in a classroom family virtually, doing this all virtually, mind you. She knew that her students were missing that social aspect of their school day while learning from home, so she arranged to have virtual lunch with them once per week. They would spend their lunchtime laughing, telling stories, and just connecting with one another. She also allowed her students to create their own Spirit Week from home, which is very unique and creative, in which they designated each day with a particular theme. But that's not all. She created an online student council within the class, organized online field trips, and arranged for in-person play dates at the school so their friends could get together and play. Parent Emily Courtney, all of these efforts did not go unnoticed. Parent Emily Courtney said, "Mrs. Brissett kept the kids positive and engaged through a computer, which I feel is no easy task. She was empathetic, supportive, and kind, making sure every student understood that this year was different and that they were doing the best that they could." While she has that gift of making students feel comfortable and engaged, she also holds high expectations, according to literacy coach Corinne Alt. Corinne writes, "Peggy has high expectations for her students and supports them in very thoughtful ways. She goes above and beyond to provide engaging lessons and activities for her students. She has her students set goals for themselves and gives them regular feedback so they know how they are doing in relation to the standards." Corinne adds that Peggy is a lifelong learner herself, and she instills this in her students, the importance of growing, seeking knowledge, and making connections. Peggy decided to become a teacher because she was not a big fan of school while growing up. She often found herself frustrated because she always wanted to know the why. In her packet, she writes, "No one ever gave purpose to my learning by connecting the dots for me or made the effort to build a relationship with me. I decided to go into teaching to change that narrative in school for kids. Foremost, I want my kids to feel important and loved." Mrs. Brissett is also known for her ability to differentiate her instruction, to give added support to struggling learners, and to challenge the students who catch on quickly to ensure that they continue to learn. One question she always asks is, what is best for kids? In her classroom, Mrs. Brissett gives 110%, and in return, her students do the same. Peggy writes, "At the end of the day, all that matters is that my kids feel loved, respected, and are learning to be the best version of themselves to better society and to be happy." And with that, I'd love to turn it over to Mrs. Brissett for a few words.
Thank you very much.
Mhm.
All right, I'm going to warn you, I'm a little nervous. I'm used to teaching in front of 8-year-olds, so this is a little overwhelming. Be patient with me.
We're happy to have you.
Thank you. Good evening. I'd like to thank the school board for taking time to honor us tonight. Please know that you are valued and respected for all that you do for Livonia Public Schools. Thank you to Superintendent Oquist, Chief Academic Officer Teresa O'Brien, and Director of Elementary Programs and Services Bill Green for fostering a collaborative environment of high expectations for Livonia Public Schools. The countless hours you dedicate to the district are much appreciated. Also, thank you to Stacy Jenkins for organizing this occasion tonight. Foremost, I'd like to thank Livonia Public Schools for taking a chance on me 22 years ago. I say 22 years because I student taught in the district, so I know it's 21 technically by contract, but 22 by heart. I was a 22-year-old kid right out of college and looking to make a difference in kids' lives. I can't believe that many years have gone by in my teaching career so quickly. I'd like to also thank the person who nominated me for Elementary Educator of the Year. I didn't know until tonight who that was, so thank you, Mrs. Courtney. Very grateful. Furthermore, I'd like to thank my current principal, Christy Collier, for always leading in a way that inspires and supports teachers. Christy allows teacher autonomy with accountability. She encourages yet guides. Her professionalism and calm demeanor are essential in our daily work. Frankly, she is simply one of the best administrators I've ever worked for. I'd also like to thank my fellow Coolidge teachers and staff, specifically my third grade team. Brenna Marshall, Carrie Winkler, and Jennifer Breeze are some of the most talented teachers I've ever worked with, and I couldn't do this job without them. I'd also like to thank all of the previous administrators and teachers who have made a difference in my career over the years. I've learned so much from all of them, but I'd like to take this moment to honor a few because I wouldn't be standing here tonight without them. Karen Winters. Sadly, I learned of Karen's passing this summer, and it immediately took me back to my unsure self. I promised myself I wasn't going to cry. I feel ridiculous. As a young teacher, you see, Karen was my very first principal. I student taught at her school, Garfield Elementary, in 1999. She was an integral piece in getting me hired as a full-time teacher the following year. I worked for Karen for 5 more years, and every meeting that she facilitated revolved around the phrase, "What is best for kids?" That phrase has stayed with me every day that I set foot in my classroom. Karen taught me the importance of thinking outside the box. She also taught me the importance of meeting kids where they are, and that building relationships with students needs to happen before any learning can occur. I'd also like to thank retired teachers Rich Mai and Jim Colleton. Thank you for taking the time to teach me the ropes. You taught me how to make learning in and out of the classroom come alive for kids. Current Riley teachers, Michelle Tandries and Lynn Carey, thank you for teaching me how important it is to be creative and collaborative. You are 2 of the most innovative teachers I know. Most importantly, thank you for teaching me to keep it real with my students and to stop and make time to laugh with them. I will always be grateful for the years that we taught together. Current Coolidge EST, Amy Rand, for going through Galileo with me and advocating for students over countless years. Furthermore, to my students, to my kids, all of my students have taught me so much over the years. They have taught me that even though teachers may not know if they are making a difference in their lives, they have more of an impact than they realize. Over the weekend, I received several emails from prior students who took the time to congratulate and thank me for all that I've done for them. Teary-eyed and grateful, I read through them all. I feel so blessed to have been their teacher. Little do they know I should be thanking them. You see, I'm the lucky one. We get to work all day with kids. You guys get that? I get to see the innocence in our world that so many adults don't get to witness day in and day out. I promise I'm almost done. In addition, I'd like to thank my family. They're here tonight. My husband of 18 years, Kurt, our daughter Megan, and our son Kyle. Thank you to Kurt for always standing by my side throughout my profession and being my sounding board. You continue to help me simplify and prioritize things because, as you can all see, I can be long-winded. Thank you, Megan and Kyle, for letting me run ideas by you to make sure they were cool enough for my students. Having a wife and mom who is a teacher can be tough at times on the family. Often I need to remember to come home with enough energy and patience to give to them too. Sometimes that happens, sometimes it doesn't. Thanks to the 3 of you for putting up with me day in and day out. Lastly, to all of the teachers out there, hang in there. We can do this. Lean on each other and stay strong because our students, their families, and all of us need each other now more than ever. Veteran teachers, look out for and support your new teachers. We can learn as much from them as they can from us. Most importantly, remember that kids may forget what you have taught them, but they will never forget how you made them feel. Help them feel seen, valued, and loved so they can see their worth. You have more of an impact than you'll ever know. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I'd like to invite Amy Monday all the way to the podium here. Hello.
Hi.
Join me. And if I could please have Board Trustee Dan Centers join us Mr. Centers will read the resolution that we've created for you.
Whereas the trustees of the Board of Education are desirous of recognizing and promoting excellence in education in this school district. And whereas Amy Monday, a special education teacher at Garfield Community School and a 14-year employee of Livonia Public Schools, has distinguished herself by being named Secondary Educator of the Year for the 2021-2022 school year by a district-wide committee. And in achieving that recognition, it is evident that she is an exceptional educator, going far beyond the expected range of her duties to meet the needs of students, colleagues, parents, and others. And whereas Amy has shown great dedication, care, and creativity through the development of a program in which her students learn how to refinish household furniture and sell the pieces to benefit the school. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the trustees of the Board of Education do hereby commend and congratulate Amy Monday for being named Secondary Educator of the Year by the 21-22 school year, and for the dedication and loyal service she has rendered to Livonia Public Schools, her students, and the community. Congratulations.
The furniture gallery.
Yes, that's right.
All right. So as stated in the resolution, Amy Monday is a special education teacher in the Western Wayne Skills Center program at Garfield Community School, and she is a 14-year employee of Livonia Public Schools. Amy's passion for teaching her students is so apparent. Through the years, she has taught a variety of skills to her students, including media and technology, culinary arts, life skills, custodial services in partnership with Madonna University, warehouse skills with the Kids Coalition, and even facilitated the skills required to disassemble copy machines with a company called Millennium Business Solutions. A woman of many talents here. She has a strong belief that her students, who are in their age range of 18 to 26, need real experiences through hands-on work in the community. She builds partnerships in order to make this happen for her students. That's in normal times. Then COVID hit, and those community opportunities were far less than before. That's when Amy really let her creative side take over. She took her new hobby of painting furniture to the next level and created an amazing micro business with her students called Skillful Designs. It was a way for her students to continue to grow with new skill sets, remain community-minded, and also raise funds that would normally have been raised through the school's seasonal craft shows. Her idea took flight and is still growing. It's creating quite the buzz as well, as evidenced by some local media coverage. Her classroom has become a workshop in which students sand, paint, stain, and replace hardware on old furniture that is donated by members of the community. Their work is truly beautiful. I've seen many pieces in person. I've seen the care and the pride that her students take in their work firsthand. The smiles and the obvious sense of accomplishment is truly inspiring. One student, Cortez, has mastered the art of using a paint sprayer, and Mrs. Monday is confident in leaving him to work independently. He does an outstanding job. Through a crazy school year, Mrs. Monday allowed her idea to develop and grow. She maintained those community partnerships, and Skillful Designs has received financial donations from Masco Corporation, through Bear Paint, correct? Mm-hmm. And the Home Depot. You can check out this beautifully refinished furniture pieces on the Skillful Designs Facebook page. Simply say, I want it, and it's theirs, right? Mm-hmm. They make arrangements with you through Facebook. Amy also has a great story about how she decided to become a special education teacher. It all started when she was in the ACAT program at Webster Elementary. As a student with ADHD, Amy struggled during her younger years at school. When she needed a movement break, she would take walks with students from the MOCI program. She volunteered her lunchtime to have lunch with her friends in the MOCI program and really enjoyed their company. She said that they just needed a little empathy, and so did she. Years later, she joined the student internship program during her senior year and returned to Webster to work with students who were in the special education program there. This was an experience that solidified her decision that she would become a special education teacher. Empathy, compassion, and love still drive her teaching philosophy. She said her students have the biggest hearts, and it brings her so much joy to see them being amazing humans, both inside and outside of the classroom. I will read just a bit from Amy's packet. She writes, "I have had many students who hate doing chores at home," sounds familiar, "with continued communication and encouragement. I have had many parents text me over the weekend to say, 'You'll never guess what so-and-so did over the weekend.' Come Monday, the student would return beaming with pride of a job well done, and those are some proud teacher moments." As with so many of our educators, Amy says that building relationships with her students makes all of the difference. She offered this nice example of a student who would become anxious and very quiet and withdrawn when she was nervous. After learning of this student's love for the one and only Johnny Cash, Mrs. Monday started playing his music when she worked with the student one-on-one. She saw an instant change in the student's demeanor, and she was able to participate fully in the learning process. She involves the families of her students as well, sending them photos of their students hard at work in class, keeping in constant communication, even outside of the school day. Garfield Community School Principal Pat Meese said Amy has an innovative mindset, which goes well beyond a growth mindset. She isn't afraid to try new things, and she instills this trait in her students. He also notes that her former students and their families keep in contact with Mrs. Monday well after moving on, and that speaks volumes. And with that, I will turn it over to Mrs. Monday for a few words.
I don't think I'm going to be as well-spoken as Peggy, but I shall try. I've got my sidekick, Maren, with me to help me along today.
Welcome, Mira.
Thank you, board and cabinet members, Superintendent Oquist, and everyone for this recognition. There is no doubt that last year's school year was different, but some things don't change. My students' desire to have opportunities, to be creative, to learn, to contribute, and to have meaningful opportunities remain consistent. All programs that have community job sites struggled to maintain opportunities since the pandemic. My focus was, how can my students practice their job skills and still be a part of our community during a pandemic? If we can't go to the community to work, we need to have the community come to us by offering a service. Many of us during the lockdown of 2020 worked on our home projects, and that's what my husband and I did. I had thought about furniture rehabbing as a micro business for our school for a few years, but we never had the time to give it a go. Since work was becoming scarce at our job site, I pitched the idea to my principal, Dr. Meese, and was given his full support. Thanks to our amazing community in Livonia and surrounding areas, donations started to come in. A former community partner, Rob Noel, had started working at Home Depot and had told his management team about us. They gave us a $500 shopping spree, and our program was able to get started. I'm also not too proud to beg, so I reached out to Behr Paint, and their parent company, Masco, gifted us $1,000 to keep us going. Another teacher, Jane Harrison, agreed to bring her class on board last year, and I am beyond thankful to Jane, Mona, and their entire class for showcasing their creativity. Beyond everything that my students have learned in skillful designs, one of the best outcomes was that the community grew to know who our students are and what they can do. Channel 7 and Hometown Life ran stories about our program, and the response was amazing. After the stories ran, Roush reached out to us, and I am proud to say that our skillful designers they don't just work on furniture, but they are working every day at Roush in the kitting department, tire installation, packaging, vinyl, graphics, and IT. I really do have a cool job. It's the best. It's a lot of fun. I get to work with some of the most kind, talented, and amazing people God gave to us. Skillful Designs was born out of a need for opportunity, and it's a blessing to see the opportunities for my students coming in from the community that they are a part of. I want to thank our paraeducator, Janine Davies, for helping to lead our students throughout all of our experiences. Eric Raymond for being the muscle and moving the furniture in and out for us. My husband for supporting me this year and teaching me how to use many of the tools that we use daily. To my kids for going to our weekly Home Depot runs as well. And most of all, thank you to our amazing students at the Western Wayne Skills Center. You continue to aspire and amaze everyone you meet. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Shall I hand on to that, Mary? You got it? Good job, Mary. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, next it is my pleasure to introduce our Support Staff Person of the Year, Mr. Eric Raymond. Eric, if you could join me at the podium. And if I could have Board President Colleen Burton join us at the podium.
This side or that side?
You're fine right there, yep. And this is what she'll be reading, but that's yours to keep.
Thank you.
Good evening again. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Livonia Public Schools, December 13th, 2021 resolution. Whereas the trustees of the Board of Education are desirous of recognizing and promoting excellence in education in this school district. And whereas Eric Raymond, building supervisor at Garfield Community School and a 34-year employee of Livonia Public Schools, has distinguished himself by being named Support Staff Person of the Year for the 2021-2022 year by a district-wide committee. And whereas in achieving this recognition, it is evident that he is an exceptional employee, going far beyond the expected range of his duties to meet the needs of students, colleagues, parents, and others. And whereas Eric has demonstrated a tremendous amount of care for his school, students, staff, and families at Garfield by working tirelessly to maintain a clean and safe environment and a welcoming place for students and staff with whom he works. Now therefore be it resolved that the trustees of the Board of Education do hereby commend and congratulate Eric Raymond for being named Support Staff Person of the Year for 2021-2022 and for the dedication and loyal service he has rendered to Livonia Public Schools, the students, and the community. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, President Burton. Now I'm going to brag about you for a few minutes. Take a deep breath. He is not liking this attention, I will tell you that.
Most people don't, and that's part of the reason that you got there.
Right. Okay, as stated in the resolution, Eric Raymond is the building supervisor at Garfield Community School, and he is a 34-year employee of Livonia Public Schools. He is known as the person who gets the job done, and he does so with a kind spirit and always with a smile. Eric's job duties include keeping a safe, clean environment for the students and staff who are in 3 separate programs at Garfield Community School. This place is always hopping with activity, and Eric Raymond, as you will soon hear, makes certain that every single thing is in order, but he also does so much more. Eric's philosophy is to lead by example, by having a strong work ethic and by treating every person with kindness. He doesn't He doesn't just care for the physical building at Garfield. He truly cares for the people with whom he works and the students who call Garfield their school home. Garfield Principal Pat Meese said it is common for Eric to stop by the school during the early morning hours when he has a day off or when he's on vacation, just to check on the building and ensure everything is in working order. He does this on his own accord. He notes that Eric was instrumental in building the school's duck pen in one of the courtyards when it was decided that they would welcome back a few ducks for the students to help care for. They are so cute. He has names for them, of course. This is a very popular activity for each of the programs that are housed at Garfield. But that is also not all. Eric works one-on-one with students who express an interest in learning custodial skills. He will tailor his instruction to fit the individual student. If a student is a reader, for example, Eric will draw up a small to-do list on a whiteboard. For students who are more impacted by their disability, he will verbally explain and then demonstrate the task. Of course, this is well outside of Eric's job description, but it is apparent that he enjoys building those relationships with the students. One of Eric's colleagues wrote about his willingness to have students work alongside him throughout his day. She had a student, this particular colleague, had a student who had trouble staying inside the classroom. Eric noticed this and soon developed a job program for this particular student, who now can be seen in the halls proudly sweeping and taking pride in his school. The colleague states, "The student adores Eric and is so excited to help him out." Another colleague noted that Eric is always there to complete any request with a kind spirit and a smile. She said, "He never waits and never makes you feel like you are bothering him. He keeps our building and grounds impeccable no matter the season." Principal Meese describes Eric as Superman, saying this, and I quote, "This award should be named after Eric Raymond. He is that good. He stands out by consistently being kind and respectful to all. He gets countless individual requests from staff, and he handles these requests expeditiously. Even if you ask Eric to make something a low priority, it still gets done quickly, and the result is always amazing. His work and his character are superb." Colleague Elizabeth Craven summarized it nicely, saying, quote, "Eric deserves this award because he is not just a custodian, he is the heart of this school." And with that, I will turn it over to Mr. Raymond for a few words.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You got this.
And congratulations, Peggy and Amy. This won't take long at all. I just want to say thank you to the committee for choosing me for this award. It does feel nice to get recognized. I want to acknowledge my colleagues for what you do for our students. You always go above and beyond. A special thank you to our custodial crew. I think they're stuck out here. Dave Brochet and Christy Nemick for all their hard work. Together we all make a great team. And great teams need great leadership, and that's what we have with Dr. Pat Meese. And thank you, Pat, for all your support. It means everything. And my family, thank you for always giving me the love and support I need. I love you guys, every one of you. Yeah, I just want to say also thanks to the board for having me here tonight, and I'm truly honored. Thank you. That's all I got.
Do we have comments and questions from our superintendent or our Board of Education members? Or anything else for Mrs. Jenkins?
That is all. I was just going to call for another round of applause, but I'd love to hear comments first if you like.
We'll take some comments first,
Yeah.
and then we'll wrap it up.
Okay.
Mr. Centers?
So our schools are, and schools in general, just so based on routines and consistency. And the last couple of years, that has really been upended. And it's required a lot of flexibility and creativity from folks. And there's been some really great examples of that, but none better than the folks who did work here and are being recognized tonight. Thank you so much. This has been a difficult time, I know, for teachers and staff. And just know that your work is recognized, it's appreciated, and thank you all for what you're doing.
Thank you, Mr. Centers. Comments or questions from other board members or the superintendent? Mrs. Oquist?
Well, congratulations to each of you. One of the themes I think you heard shared, not only from what Mrs. Jenkins shared, but from what each of you shared, is truly their heart and soul for this work came through. That came through loud and clear from each of you. And it really is such a hallmark of our folks in LPS. Your heart is with the students that you serve, the care for the colleagues with whom you work each day. And we love this evening because it's an opportunity for us to just celebrate who you are and all that you give. So we are so, so grateful for each one of you, so proud of you, and each of you, just in your unique way, did such a special job recognizing not only the students with whom you work, your colleagues, the district. For that, we're so grateful to have each one of you as part of our school family. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other board members like to add anything? And I'd also like to congratulate you. The word exceptional has been used several times this evening. This past year and a half has been an exceptional year and a half, not necessarily in a positive way, but it has really given the opportunity for folks like you to shine, to take this opportunity and to turn it into something really good and turn it into something that hadn't existed before. And we thank all three of you for being wonderful examples of having such a can-do spirit, which can get difficult with the amount of time that we've had to pull that through. But you have, and we're so grateful for you. There are 2,000 staff members, about 1,000 teachers and 1,000 support staff, and so many are deserving of this honor. But tonight we honor you as such a fabulous example of the wonderful people that we have in Livonia Public Schools. And we thank you for taking a really rough last year with really big challenges and instead turning them into wonderful opportunities for our kids and being leaders in your buildings. So thank you so much, and it is our joy to honor you this evening. Mrs. Jenkins? One more round of applause.
I say we call for one
our
more
folks.
round of applause, yes.
And we have an official motion to vote on to wrap up this portion of our business. We do have a motion for Educators and Support Staff of the Year, and our motion was by Mrs. Bonnefield, supported by Mrs. Jarvis. Mrs. Bonnefield, will you please take the roll?
Absolutely. Mrs. Bonnefield says yes. Mrs. Jarvis?
Yes.
Mrs. Acosta?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Centers?
Yes.
And President Burton?
Yes, and that motion passes. Congratulations again. We are so thrilled. We are going to have our district update from our superintendent next, and then we will be followed by a brief 5 to 10 minute break so that we can congratulate you folks again. Mrs. Oquist.
All righty, here we go. I think Mrs. O'Brien is going to get that set up for us. All right, as you know, each board meeting, I love to have the opportunity to just share some special elements throughout our district. And so tonight we knew we'd have some special celebrations, so I'm going to keep it relatively brief, but it is certainly the time to get into the holiday spirit. And so we've got a couple of short video snippets that we have embedded because we've just had some wonderful performances by our high school music groups over the past couple of weeks as they have delighted audiences. So Vice President Johnson, nope, that's okay. Are we stopped? Yeah. Okay. Vice President Johnson, Mrs. Jenkins, and I have the opportunity to visit Greenmead Holiday Nights on Friday night. And in the church at Greenmead, so this is a community-sponsored event. They invited some of our choral groups to sing in the church. So we're going to share a little snippet with you of Mrs. Olson leading the bel canto choir from Franklin High School. Weren't they amazing? They are so talented. And we are so lucky because each time, I feel like I'm being like talked off the stage at the award show. Because each year they also treat us here at Central Office, and I'll tell you, it's just such a joy. So they're coming this Thursday at 11:45. They're going to fill the lobby and sing Christmas carols, and I'll tell you, literally, this place just, everyone floods to the first floor so we can hear them. So we can't wait, Mrs. Olson and crew, for you guys to come over. And today, Ann Fisher, who is the vocal music director of Kappa students, brought her juniors and seniors from Kappa Vocal, and we had our Livonia Rotary Christmas luncheon today. And so it was such a pleasure for us to see our students perform. And so if you'd like to play a little clip from that. And we'll only have you listen to that once. And we were looking forward to hearing Stevenson Symphonic Choir on Saturday evening at Holiday Nights, but unfortunately was canceled. As you know, the weather was a bit inclement, and because most of the activities were outdoors, it was canceled. But as you'll see on the screen, they did perform at Emmanuel Lutheran Women's Association Holiday Party. And as we shared, they were supposed to be scheduled at Greenmead. But I'll tell you, if you have a chance, take a look at the district or the school websites. Take a look at when your high school bands and choirs and theater groups are performing. Normally, we try to let you know many of those as they're coming up. But what a true joy. We'll have one more for you at the end of the update. Again, we have some beautiful holiday artwork on display. So as you head out tonight, please make sure you take a look. We have many, many wonderful, talented artists across the district. But Mrs. Kelly Stark is the art teacher at Coolidge, does a phenomenal job with our kiddos, and you'll see some of their artwork in the lobby of the boardroom. And we'll just share some other pictures, lots of fun happening throughout. That's what this time of the year, we love to infuse that, and it's great to have so many of those pieces back into the classroom. So we had Grinch Day at Kennedy and Pajama Day at Webster, Silly Sweater Day at Rosedale. I have to say, I like the name Silly Sweater Day better than Ugly Sweater Day. I may be more inclined.
Super cute.
The Santa shop was hopping at Buchanan Elementary. I'm sure you remember that for many, many years. What a great event, and how excited our kiddos get, and the PTA volunteers that spend so much time helping to set that up. We have some Coolidge students who painted the windows for the holiday season, and our LTP students that made holiday buttons with their button maker to share as gifts. And if many of you remember a couple Sundays ago, it was a rainy, cold day, but we are so proud of all of our groups that just braved the weather. It was a wet one, wasn't it? And it was chilly. But you'll see on the left, you see our Stevenson hockey team led out the mayor and the city council and a number of our elected officials. In the middle, you'll see one of our wonderful transportation staff, Elizabeth, driving the bus that was decorated coming through at the end of the parade. We see one of our marching bands here. I'm not sure which group that is, but all three of the high school marching bands were there. And we had scout groups and church groups and wonderful community spirit coming through. So even though it was not the weather we had hoped for, it really was just a joyful occasion to be there. So thank you to each of our groups who stuck it out and who always just represent LPS so well in the Merry and Bright Parade. Well, this was the time of year to give back. As you know, one of the things that our schools do so very well is to help others in need. And Churchill had set a goal, you'll see there, of a little over 30,000 cans, which is a huge, enormous goal. They are absolutely known for collecting for the Goodfellows each year. They collected almost 37,000. So they literally crushed their goal, and the Goodfellows were so appreciative. Again, Holmes Middle School collected almost 1,000 cans. I know they did at Riley as well. Just tremendous effort by our community, and thank you so, so much. We had many wonderful acts of kindness over the past few weeks. We started our meeting with a special recognition of our friends in the Oxford school community, a moment of silence for the tragedy that they've experienced, and our hearts continue to be with them each and every day. And our kiddos have just found ways throughout the district to show that love. And so Kindness Week at Franklin took on a little extra meaning this year as they included one of their days recognition of Oxford Strong. And we see Frost Middle School students signed a special banner in support of the Oxford school community. Our Livonia Red Gymnastics took a moment to remember Oxford during their recent meet. And I want to share with you before we start it, Churchill Band had a wonderful Christmas concert last week. I don't remember which evening it was. I think it was Tuesday night. And a surprise addendum onto the program was that in 1 week's time, the band learned Oxford High School's fight song and performed it. And so I'd like to share that with you now. I'd like to congratulate and thank, yes, let's clap for them. I'd like to thank Churchill teacher and band conductor and director Matt Van Ham for his wonderful work. It was just a joyous concert, and that was a very special addition to the program. So thank you so much. And just don't ever forget, I know we've included this many times in our communications to our entire school community, but our LPS social emotional hotline continues to be available. manned by our wonderful student services staff. Phone number, internal extension, and email address. We are always here to help. And then finally, just a reminder that we are hiring in some key areas. We would love to have you join our team in food service, transportation, and before and after school-age childcare. So thank you so much, President Burton, and to our board for letting me share some of the highlights and the sights and sounds of the season.
Thank you so much. At this time, we're going to take about a 5 to 10 minute recess so that those of us who are in attendance this evening can congratulate our honorees. We are at recess. We'll see you back in a few moments. Welcome to the continuation of the Livonia Public Schools Board of Education regular meeting of December 13th, 2021. If you missed us a few minutes ago, we had a wonderful opportunity to congratulate our educators and support staff of the year. If you missed it, I suggest that you rewind and watch it again, because they were 3 examples of some of the fabulous folks that we have serving our students in our community. We're going to continue with our agenda this evening, and we are on to item 3D, written communications. Do any board members have any written communications that they'd like to share with the board at this time? No? Seeing none, we are on to audience communications. Audience communications is a time set aside, that the board sets aside to listen to members of our community. It is not a question and answer session, but rather a listening session. We have a 3-minute time limit as to our policy for each person. And the reason that we have a 3-minute time limit is so that we can be fair and equitable to everybody who wishes to speak. We will have a timer set for 3 minutes. So if you are speaking and you hear the timer going off, if you could wrap up your comments, that would be appreciated. The reason we use a timer is that we would find that just to be a little bit more polite than having to interrupt a speaker. So if you hear that tone, you can know that it's your time to wrap up your comments. The role of the Board of Education is threefold, and that is to hire and evaluate the superintendent, to set policy and revise or delete policy as necessary, and to set the strategic goals or the long-term goals for the district and align the budget to those goals. If you have comments this evening, we are here to listen to those. If you have a specific question and it pertains to those 3 areas that I just mentioned, you could expect your answer to your question to come to you from the Board of Education. If it's a question and it requires an answer and it's outside of those 3 areas, something that we refer to as daily operations of the district, you could expect an answer from the administrative team. Again, we very much hold to the concept of respect, and you have our word that the Board of Education will give every speaker our full and complete respect. We do ask that everybody who's in attendance this evening give every speaker also their full and complete respect. We can agree and we can disagree, and that's okay, but we will treat one another with respect. The first speaker that we have this evening for audience communications is Tanya Hug. Ms. Hug. Can you make sure that your microphone is on if you tap it until it turns green?
No, don't. I found it. Thank you.
There you go. Now you're on.
Hi, Tanya
Hello.
Hogg.
Good evening.
Thank you for having me here today.
You're welcome.
I wanted to say that I'm sorry that us parents, prior to COVID, were not coming to school board meetings, we're not coming to city hall meetings. We weren't aware of a lot of the things that were going on in our schools, the books that are being found out and all those other things. And so we didn't do our job. And I know that you guys were standing in, being the parents, being the people that made all of the decisions without anybody else coming too. So it's a little bit different for you guys to have to listen to a whole bunch of parents coming in with a lot of disagreements. And it concerns me greatly that our country, our states, our cities, our school boards and everything are divided, where you say, we can disagree. And we do, but the problem is we're disagreeing about something that is so divisive on health measures for children. And so when, as a whole, we all have to take one-way option, we only have one option to take, and we're not going to listen to the other side, hear even doctors that are talking that are like, hey, you know what, we need to have a discussion about things that are good or not good. Yeah, there's polls there are surveys that say masks are good, surveys that say masks are bad, blah, blah, blah. But when a whole bunch of frontline doctors who have treated over 1,000 patients together are treating them with positive results, and they go to our legislators in Lansing, and all of the Democratic legislators will not listen to them and cancel their meetings when they've come from Texas, they've come from all around, and they're not being heard. That scares me and shows me that there really is some sort of narrative going on when they are going to blackball and shut out a whole nother narrative where these are doctors, people that have informative reasons to say this, they've gone to college and stuff. So my concern is that, as respectful as we all are, and as we listen, but it's more patronizing to us parents when we're not really getting, I've come to meetings, I've talked several times now, and I've talked before about the vaccine clinics inside. My son at the same day talked about the masks and things, but we both got the same email back. We didn't get an actual response to what we talked about. And I'm coming in as a new person, learning to talk to you guys and trying to think of what I'm going to say and how I'm going to try to address it as quickly as possible to try and get facts out to you guys, that I want you guys to hear me, that I'm not just somebody on YouTube looking at videos, but I'm going in and I'm finding these articles. I'm not just reading the headlines, but I'm going in and I'm reading them. I'm going to studies, I'm going to class, I'm going to discussions with doctors, with these things. Like, I'm doing my research, I'm trying, and I want you guys to understand that as well. I'm concerned when I talked to a parent that said, so that they can get rid of quarantine times, they have children move every 14 minutes from their seat to a new seat so that they're not sitting next to another child for more than 14 minutes. And I pray that that's not true. But if it is, the only thing we're teaching our children is compliance for ridiculous answers. I appreciate that too, by the way, that you guys do that, because other people are like, stop talking, and they just kick people out. But quickly, we're trying to teach our kids, because COVID isn't sitting there saying, okay, for 15 minutes I can get them now. That doesn't exist. And so when we're sitting there complying to things like that, if that's true, and I did ask in my questions for somebody to tell me that that's true or not, because I wasn't there, so I don't know. If that's the case, there's some really big problems that we need to fix. And I'll stop there for my 3 minutes, but I think you guys all understand what I'm trying to say about that, right? Thank you very much.
Question on the quarantine timing. Yes, thank you. Our next speaker is Chase Hug.
Do you want to? He actually left. He was 6, and there was a very long discussion, so he was like, Mom, I'm going to go.
All righty. Our next speaker is Paulette Ola.
Hi.
Good evening.
I wanted to go back to something Mr. Johnson said in August, which I thought was fabulous, and I thought was the answer that we're looking for. He said that there's information on this side, there's information on this side, and no one's going to agree on what the definitive truth is. So the answer to that is parental choice. And that I wanted to jump up and go, yes, okay, we can stop all this now. We don't have to stay here till 10 o'clock at night, every time we have a meeting, because that is the answer. It just occurred to me shortly before I came here tonight that if you want to send your child to school in a mask, you're good to go. Your parental rights and choice is supported, and you're all set. However, if you're a parent that wants to send your child to school without a mask, where are my parental rights? So I think you can see it's sort of a divided system that's really not fair. The teacher of the year, who was the elementary school teacher, I'm sorry, I don't remember her name. They were all fabulous, by the way. I loved that presentation. She said the biggest thing is that she was taught is what's best for the kids. Well, I can tell you as a parent, and I don't know if every single one of you is a parent, probably most of you are, what's best for your kids, you know. Your neighbor doesn't know what's best for your kids. Your teacher, as much as they love your child, doesn't know what's best for them, but you do. And so we've got to get back to what you said. It's the answer, and I appreciated it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Emily Steffens.
Hi.
Good evening.
Good evening. This is on? Okay.
It is on, yes.
All right.
Go right ahead.
I hadn't planned on speaking, so I don't have anything prepared, so bear with me. I was a teacher for 13 years, and I now teach homeschool classes where some families come in with masks and some don't, and it works fantastically. And every family feels respected and keeping their child safe to whatever level they need to. I am asking for clarification. I know you can't maybe answer me now, but maybe someone could email me. I don't know if the people who sit on this side are LPS employees or if that's something else that's going on. But there's a lot of stories on social media. I'm hearing from a lot of families that kids that are wearing mesh masks to school are being told they can't. They're being sent home. They're being given school-issued masks. But there's 2 people on this side that are wearing mesh masks, maybe from fakemask.com. I don't wear a mask. I choose not to. When I do have to wear one, it's a mesh mask so I can breathe and not get migraines. But I think if it's good enough for adults employed by LPS to wear one, then kids should be allowed to as well, if that's what their family decides is right for them.
Thank you. Yes, I will. Is anybody else wishing to participate in audience communications this evening? Alrighty, just as a matter of factual clarification, I've stated this before from this board, and I think it's mostly known, but just in case anybody's unaware, the issue of masks is not that of, in Wayne County, is not that of any Board of Education at this time. Wayne County has a mask mandate that has been issued by the Wayne County Health Department. It is an order, it holds the same weight as law. We are bound to be upholding that or to be in violation of the law. Therefore, if you're looking for an entity that's going to change that at this point in time, it would be the Wayne County Health Department, because that is the order that this Board of Education and every Board of Education in Wayne County is under.
But you could allow mesh masks.
We'll go ahead with the rest of our meeting. If you have any further questions, we can go ahead and address those back. I'm sorry. We can't do a question and answer session right now. That was just a matter of clarification so people understood. If you have any questions, I can make certain that you will be reached out to, and we'll go from there. Oh, we're not going there. The next item on our agenda is response to prior audience communications, and I don't have any response to prior audience communications other than that I just stated at this time. Next item on our agenda is item 4, consent agenda, and may I have a motion, please?
President Burton.
Mrs. Acosta.
Bear
Oh,
with me.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Yes, go ahead with the motion, please.
Okay. I can't read that. Move that the Board of Education of the Livonia Public Schools School District approve the following consent agenda items as recommended by the superintendent. Item 5A, minutes of the regular meeting of November 29th, 2021. Item 6A, approval of resolution for summer tax collection.
Are there any items that the members of the Board of Education wish to have taken off of the consent agenda for further discussion later at this meeting?
I'll support the motion.
Thank you. At this time, do we have a support on that? No, Mr. Centers said he supported it? Okay. At this time, we have the motion for a consent agenda by Mrs. Acosta, supported by Mr. Centers, and Mrs. Bonnefield, would you please take the roll?
Yes. Mrs. Acosta.
Yes.
Mr. Centers.
Yes.
Mrs. Jarvis.
Yes.
Mr. Johnson.
Yes.
Mrs. Bonnefield says yes. President Burton.
Yes, and that motion passes. The next item on our agenda is item 6, business matters, and 6B is the approval of the 2021-2022 first budget amendment. May I have a motion, please?
President Burton,
Mr. Johnson.
move that the Board of Education of the Livonia Public Schools School District approve the attached amended budgets for the 2021-2022 school year. General Fund, Funded Projects Fund, Special Education Fund, Debt Retirement Fund, Capital Projects Fund, Capital Projects 2 Fund, Food Service Fund, Health and Welfare Fund, Scholarship Fund, and School Activities Fund.
Support.
We have a motion by Mr. Johnson, supported by Mrs. Jarvis. And I believe we will be hearing from Mrs. Smith on this item.
Thank you, President Burton, and thank you to the board for your time last week and allowing me to walk through each one of our funds and go over the details of those recommended changes and answer questions. So I will keep it brief tonight, but I just wanted to give a broad highlight for those that at home that maybe didn't tune in last week. I'm recommending an overall adjustment to the revenues of $2.4 million. Primarily, it's two items that account for that adjustment. One is additional 147C revenue from the state, and the other is a new reimbursement for unreimbursed special education costs in our general fund from Wayne RESA. On the expenditure side, I'm recommending a decrease in expenditures of about $1.7 million, and there's about three things that make up that change. The first is related to the additional 147C revenue. We also have now to record additional retirement expenditures related to that. The other two are a reduction related to a school bus purchase that was made last year that we are not going to be doing this year out of the general fund, so that relieved some of those transportation dollars. And the last one was moving some salaries of staff currently paid out of the general fund that we now have grant dollars to support. So moving those expenditures over to our funded projects fund. So happy to report with those adjustments, we're looking at an ending fund balance of $30.4 million or 19.3%, which puts us right in that range that the Michigan school business officials recommend of 15 to 20% of a fund balance.
Terrific. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there questions or comments from the superintendent or members of the board? This is one of these items that we had lengthy discussion, as you mentioned, over the past couple of meetings on, so it's understandable that there are not questions, but please, if you're looking for detail on this topic, and there is a great deal of it, please tune into the Committee of the Whole meeting, which you can find on our school website under the meeting from last week. Any other comments or questions on this item? Seeing none, we have a motion by Mr. Johnson, supported by Mrs. Jarvis, and Mrs. Bonnefield, would you please take the roll?
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mrs. Jarvis?
Yes.
Mrs. Bonnefield says yes. Mr. Centers?
Yes.
Mrs. Acosta?
Yes.
And President Burton.
Yes, and that motion passes. The next item on our agenda is item 6C, approval to purchase HVAC equipment 2021 bond. And may I have a motion, please?
President Burton,
Mrs. Jarvis.
move that the Board of Education of the Livonia Public Schools School District approve the purchase of HVAC equipment from Thermalnetics, Auburn Hills, Michigan, in the amount of $492,311 for the summer 2022 bond projects.
Support.
We have a motion by Mrs. Jarvis, supported by Mr. Centers. And we will be hearing from Mr. Francis on this item.
Thank you, President Burton.
Thank you.
These items were put out for bid for the 2021 bond initiative and the projects that are upcoming this summer. As discussed, and I'll just try to do a very brief summary because we discussed this at length at the committee meeting last week with Plant and Cressa as well. But just a quick summary again of this is that these are items that we have from the industry understood to be longer lead times than would be appropriate for the regular bids that will probably not come to this board until late February. So in order to get a jump on the lead times, just to trigger the manufacturing of them, we put these items out for bid. We as a school district and you as a board, if you do approve this, we can make the PO, which will trigger the manufacturing of it. That will give us the added weeks that we can then, in turn, once we have prime contractors through the bid process for the bond work of the summer 2022 projects, the HVAC vendors and the HVAC contractors, we will turn those items and the contracts over to them. So ultimately, we are really doing this as an approval process for the concerns of the way the market currently is and the long lead times on this specific item. All the other HVAC equipment will be bundled in traditionally for the HVAC contractors to order for themselves, based upon our specifications.
Thank you. Are there questions or comments from the superintendent or board members? Mr. Centers.
I just want to thank Phil and the folks at Plant Marine Cross and Clark that just really understanding the market and understanding, we've seen time and time again supply chain and how it's disrupted the best laid plans, and just being really forward thinking and making sure we're proactive to make sure we get ahead of this so that the work can be done this summer is very appreciated. So thank you.
Absolutely. And one other extra note, which again we mentioned last week, but just want to put it out there for those who didn't watch last week's meeting. We did also have district's legal counsel involved in these conversations to ensure that the district and the board was doing everything that is required in the bid process, the contractual items with regard to turning it over to the future vendor, et cetera. So we wanted to make sure we had all of our I's dotted, T's crossed, and made sure we were within our legal bounds of how we were doing these contracts.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions from the board or superintendent? Alrighty, seeing none, we have a motion for approval to purchase HVAC equipment from the 2021 bond by Mrs. Jarvis, supported by Mr. Centers. Mrs. Bonnefield, could you please take the roll?
Mrs. Jarvis?
Yes.
Mr. Centers?
Yes.
Mrs. Acosta?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mrs. Bonnefield says yes. President Burton?
Yes, and that motion passes. The next item on our agenda is item 7, personnel matters, and 7A is teachers for approval. May I have a motion, please?
President Burton?
Mrs. Bonnefield. Sorry. It's okay.
Move that the Board of Education of the Livonia Public Schools School District accept the recommendation of the superintendent and offer employment for the 2021-22 school year to the teachers listed on the attached document.
Support.
We have a motion by Mrs. Bonnefield, supported by Mrs. Jarvis. Mrs. Keats.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
The prospective new staff members we are presenting to the board this evening have been selected to fill our needs in the areas of special education, science, and social studies. They are all well qualified to fill their respective positions and have been fully vetted through our extensive interview process. We are confident they will perform at a high level and represent Livonia Public Schools in a manner that is consistent with our shared vision and collective commitments. These positions have also been included in the 21-22 budget. We are pleased to be recommending these talented individuals to join our LPS family, and with your approval, we are excited to have them working with our students.
Thank you. Are there comments or questions from members of the board or the superintendent?
Welcome aboard.
Absolutely. And Mrs. Keats, again, I check with this whenever we're hiring mid-year. I assume that these are to fill positions that have been vacated by either leaves or retirements or such and such?
At this point, we have some retirements, some that I'm going to be speaking to in just a moment.
Just a moment. All right. Okay, great. Okay. And they are within the budget as we set it at the beginning of the year.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Seeing them, we have a motion for teachers for approval by Mrs. Bonnefield, supported by Mrs. Jarvis. Mrs. Bonnefield, would you please take the roll?
Mrs. Bonnefield says yes. Mrs. Jarvis?
Yes.
Mr. Centers?
Yes.
Mrs. Acosta?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
President Burton?
Yes, and that motion passes. The next item on our agenda is item 7B, teachers for tenure. May I have a motion, please?
President Burton.
Mr. Centers.
Move that the Board of Education of the Livonia Public Schools School District accept the recommendation of the superintendent and acknowledge that tenure status has been granted to the following teacher effective on the respective date. Lisa Brazil Ackley, December 9th, 2021.
Support.
We have a motion by Mr. Centers, supported by Mrs. Acosta. Mrs. Keats.
Hello again.
Hello.
So our one teacher for tenure on this agenda has successfully completed the district's requirements for probationary teachers, including years of service, evaluations, overall performance, and documentation of student growth. We have carefully reviewed all supporting materials along with the recommendations of our building administration and have determined that this educator should be granted tenure status with Livonia Public Schools. We wish to congratulate the staff member for reaching this milestone and looking forward to her continued success working in Livonia Public Schools.
Thank you. Are there comments or questions from the superintendent or board members? Yeah, absolutely. Seeing none, congratulations. We have a motion for teachers for tenure by Mr. Centers, supported by Mrs. Acosta. And Mrs. Bonnefield, would you please take the roll?
Mr. Centers?
Yes.
Mrs. Acosta?
Yes.
Mrs. Bonnefield says yes. Mrs. Jarvis?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
President Burton?
Yes, and that motion passes. The next item on our agenda is item 7C, resignations, and that does not require a board vote. Next item on our agenda is item 7D, retirements. May I have a motion, please?
President Burton.
Mrs. Acosta.
Move that the Board of Education of the Livonia Public Schools School District adopt the attached resolutions of appreciation for the services rendered by Terry Gagola, Mark T. Schultz, Catherine Seidlick, and Lisa Wilson.
Support.
All righty, we have a motion by Mrs. Acosta, supported by Mrs. Bonnefield. Mrs. Keats.
Tonight, we honor and congratulate 4 members of our LPS family who are retiring from their positions with Livonia Public Schools. As these staff members leave the district, they take with them a combined total of over 110 years of experience. On behalf of the administration, I would like to thank these wonderful staff members for the dedicated years of service they have provided to the students of Livonia Public Schools, and we ask the board to please adopt the attached resolutions of appreciation for our retirees.
Thank you. Are there comments or questions from the superintendent or board members?
Congratulations.
We certainly wish them well and all the happiness in their retirement.
Absolutely. Retirement resolutions are always bittersweet. We're so thrilled for our folks, very proud of the careers that they've had with Livonia Public Schools and excited for them with their next chapter. And at the same time, whenever we look on these lists and see folks that we know personally and that we've worked alongside personally for so many years, it's sad, and we realize the loss to the district when this much historical knowledge and support of our district and our students is leaving. So we wish these folks well and an exciting and long next chapter of their lives, but it's with a little bit of sadness always. We have any other comments or questions? Seeing none, we have a motion by Mrs. Acosta, supported by Mrs. Bonifield. And Mrs. Bonifield, would you please take the roll?
Mrs. Acosta?
Yes.
Mrs. Bonifield says yes. Mr. Centers?
Yes.
Mrs. Jarvis?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
And President Burton.
Yes, and that motion passes. The next item on our agenda is item 8, hearing from board members. Are there any board members who have anything that they would wish to share at this time? Our cable's a little long here. Mrs. Jarvis.
Thank you. I just wanted to extend to all of our families the wishes for a very, very happy holiday season. And I hope that everybody comes back happy and healthy and ready to kick off a new year.
Absolutely. Any other comments or questions? Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, President Burton. We had the opportunity tonight to recognize 3 outstanding members of our LPS family. But as Mrs. Burton alluded to, we've got almost 2,000 employees that we rely upon every day of the week and every weekend, as a matter of fact, to many of those folks. So I just want to make sure that they are not forgotten in all of this celebration, because they are the backbone of our school district. So we appreciate everything you do on a day in and day out basis. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other board members wishing to add anything this evening? Likewise, I'd just like to wish everyone a wonderful holiday season. Our family is celebrating Christmas, but along with whatever holidays your family is celebrating, I wish you wonderful, restful, blessed holidays. I wish everyone a wonderful new year, and hopefully everyone will come back well rested with having been able to spend some nice time with your families. I wish you a wonderful season, and we are now at the end of our agenda, so I wish you a nice evening. Good evening. We're adjourned. Welcome to the Livonia Public Schools Board of Education special meeting of December 13th, 2021. Your mic is muted. Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. Welcome to the Livonia Public Schools Board of Education special meeting of December 13th, 2021. This is following our regular or general meeting, also of the same date, December 13th, 2021. Mrs. Bonifield, would you please take the roll?
I'd love to. Mrs. Acosta? Here. Mrs. Bonnefield is here. Mr. Centers?
Here.
Mrs. Jarvis?
Here.
Mr. Johnson?
Here?
Mrs. Bradford is absent tonight. President Burton?
Here, and we have a quorum. This meeting is a special meeting, and it is following our normal regular meeting of this evening. Our regular meeting of this evening, we had the honor of honoring our special support staff and educators of the year. If you've not had the opportunity to view that, I highly recommend that you do so. It was a very, very joyous time for our school district. At this time, we will go to a next item on our agenda, which is audience communications. Is anybody present who would like to participate in audience communications? Seeing none, we'll go to our next item on our agenda. Okay. Our next item on our agenda is item 3, recess to closed session to consider security planning. May I have a motion, please?
President Burton.
Mr. Johnson.
Move that the Board of Education of the Livonia Public Schools School District recess to closed session to consider security planning to prevent potential threats to the safety of students and staff.
Support.
We have a motion by Mr. Johnson, supported by Mrs. Jarvis. Do we have any comments on going into closed session? We have a motion by Mr. Johnson, supported by Mrs. Jarvis, to recess to closed session to consider security planning. And Mrs. Bonnefield, would you please take the roll?
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mrs. Jarvis?
Yes.
Mrs. Acosta?
Yes.
Mr. Centers?
Yes.
Mrs. Bonnefield says yes, and President Burton?
Yes. We will now go into we will now recess rather to closed session. Mrs. Oquist, are we going to be coming back on camera after? I did not think so. Okay. We will, since this is the only item on our closed session, we will not, with requiring no other action, we will not be coming back on camera. So we will be off camera from this point in the evening. Thank you.